everyone, my name is Nathaniel Gonchman, and today I'm going to be giving a presentation about mass hysteria. So imagine this. You wake up one night to people outside of your house kicking and screaming at your door. You go downstairs to look out the window to see, what the fuss might be. But after hours of bantering, they finally break in and take you outside with the rest of the people. At this point, you know that there's no point to continue arguing when you're on your knees and they're screaming, "Witch, witch!" After hours, you are brought before a judge and you hear the fatal ruling: death. Oh, and did I mention that you're in Salem, Massachusetts, 1692? This famous case of mass hysteria is known all around the world. Mass hysteria, commonly referred to as the conversation disorder, is a widespread panic that has brought horror to many places around the world. By the end of my speech, you will be familiar with mass hysteria, how to identify it, and break it down. First, we're going to start off by talking about some historically famous cases. The first historically famous case we're going to be talking about is Y2K. Y2K was something that happened in 1999 to 2000. People were scared that software technology wasn't going to be able to fully compute and fully understand how to roll over from 1999 to 2000. They thought that this technology was going to interpret the double zeros as 1900, not 2000. People were scared. They thought that you weren't going to be able to book plane flights, or you weren't going to be able to access your proper medical history. Time magazine even had an article that said the end of the world, talking about Y2K. Y2K at this time in the US was eventually synonymous with doomsday. Another case, in which I talked about earlier, is the Salem witch trials. Just like Y2K, it was a very popular and very horrendous case of mass hysteria. People accused you of being a witch if you had moles on your back, if you were, had seizures all the time, if you were able to financially support yourself without a partner, or if you're just female. People, have accused people of being a witch in Salem just by being female. The Salem justice officials eventually got so enthralled with this witch hunt that they started to hold illegal court processes. In her 2009 article, Salem Witch Trials, from the First Amendment Encyclopedia, Elizabeth Purdy says, "The accused were slandered with little recourse and denied rights that should have been granted to them under English common law. The punishments for being a witch in Salem at the time were drowning and hanging." Now that you know about some historically famous cases, let's talk about the effects of mass hysteria. Mass hysteria affects many different people in many different ways. As you can see, anxiety to dizziness to even hyperventilation and paralysis. Dr. Robert Mueller, in his 2014 article, Worrying Yourself Sick, a personal account on Psychology Today, he said that 1 in 10 people suffer from mental illness, and that this unchecked mental illness can go on to lead into something bigger like mass hysteria. And although physical symptoms like chest pain and muscle tightness are linked to mass hysteria, that's not what Maria Kohut would agree with. In her 2018 article, Mass Hysteria, An Epidemic of the Mind, from Medical News Today, she talks about how mass hysteria is all in your head. She basically tells you that your head is running with anxiety and stress and paranoia all day, every day, that it eventually feeds off of itself. And it's not healthy, and it makes those around you also tend to think the same way that you think. Now that we know some effects of mass hysteria, let's talk about how mass hysteria can spread. Groupthink is something that a lot of psychologists today believe is how mass hysteria is spread. People think that, basically groupthink is a psychological idea that happens with a group when everyone is to come to a consensus, but just because the majority has come to a consensus, they think that is now fact. This happens a lot in high schools and, just different cliques and different environments like that. Groupthink is really negative, because the longer the group stays together, the stronger and more bond they have with each other. The more they respect and trust what another person's saying and hold it to be fact when actually it's not fact at all. Another way that mass hysteria is spread is by the word of famous people. Famous people can make a lot of people do a lot of different things, and a lot of people can hold what famous people say to be fact. And well, when you have a large group of people that thinks that something Nicki Minaj said is fact, it can cause them to be in a state of mass hysteria. People think that just because political leaders say something, that it is automatically true. The Salem witch trials is a very good example of this, because the rich girls that were in the town, that were the daughters of the judges and the important people in the school, they were famous people in Salem, and people thought that it was to be true because, well, a person with high status said it, and so it must be right. And to conclude my speech today, when analyzing mass hysteria, you first have to remember, is it a he said, she said situation? Remember what facts are, and do not let opinions cloud those facts. And just because you're a famous pop star or a political figure said something does not mean that it is true.